All right, let's dive into a really intense chapter from Flavius Josephus's account of the Jewish War. Now, this isn't just a story about rebellion against Rome. It's also about how, right in the middle of all that chaos, one man's political genius set the stage for a new, and pretty infamous, dynasty. This is the story of a cycle of conflict that would change Judea forever.
So, after the Roman general Pompey storms Jerusalem, he imposes this, fragile peace on Judea, and nobody is happy about it. The kingdom is broken up, its walls are torn down, and the people are now subjects of a massive distant empire. But right below that surface of Roman control, the embers of rebellion were already starting to glow. And the first real spark of open revolt comes from this guy, Alexander. He's the son of the Jewish king who got kicked off the throne. After he escapes from Roman hands, he comes back to Judea not just as a fugitive, but as a real contender for the crown. He's dead set on raising an army and kicking out the guy Rome put in charge.
And you know what? At first, he's incredibly successful. Josephus tells us he gets together an army of 10,000 foot soldiers. Now, to put that in perspective, this wasn't just some small skirmish. A force that big was a genuine threat to Roman control in the whole region. And on top of that, he adds 1,500 horsemen, creating this really powerful and mobile fighting force. With an army like this, Alexander wasn't just protesting Roman rule anymore. He was making a serious play to take back all of Judea.
But here's the thing about Rome. They never let a challenge go unanswered. The new governor of Syria, a man named Gabinius, immediately marches to crush this uprising. And he sends his best lieutenant ahead of him, a name you might just recognize, Marcus Antonius. Yup, that Mark Antony.
The two armies finally meet near Jerusalem, and it's a disaster for the rebels. Alexander's forces, even with their big numbers, were just no match for the disciplined Roman legions. In the end, 6,000 of his men were lost. About half were killed right there on the field, and the other half were captured.
But what happens next is this really fascinating political move. With her son totally defeated, Alexander's mother steps in. To get some mercy for her family members who are still prisoners in Rome, she cuts a deal with the Roman general. She agrees to have Judea's main fortresses torn down, making sure, in her own chilling words, that they couldn't become receptacles of men in a second war.
And Gabinius didn't just stop with a military win. He completely re-engineered Judean society to make sure another king couldn't rise up. He got rid of the monarchy entirely, set up an aristocracy, and then he split the nation into 5 separate districts. The goal here was simple: divide and conquer, and make sure no single leader could challenge Rome again.
So, the rebellion is crushed, the fortresses are gone, and the government is remade in Rome's image. You'd think the story ends there, right? A nice, lasting peace? Well, not even close.
Because just as one fire was put out, another one erupted. This time it was the father, Aristobulus himself, who somehow managed to escape from Rome. He makes it back to Judea, and the people, always hoping for a change, just flock to his side. And just like that, the second revolt had begun.
The desire to have their king back was so strong that he pulls together an army of 8,000 followers, almost overnight. And this wasn't just a mob. It attracted real leaders, like a guy named Pothelus, a lieutenant from Jerusalem who defected to Aristobulus and brought 1,000 of his own men with him. That gave the whole rebellion an air of legitimacy.
But tragically, the result was exactly the same. The Romans, who were just relentless and efficient, met his army in battle. And once again, the rebels were totally overwhelmed. 5,000 were cut down. The dream of a restored kingdom died with them on that battlefield.
Aristobulus and what was left of his men made this last, desperate stand at the ruins of the Machaerus fortress. For 2 whole days, they held out against impossible odds. But in the end, it wasn't enough. They were captured, and the king and his son were put in chains and sent right back to their prison in Rome.
You'd think that would finally be the end of it, right? The father and the son, both defeated, both in chains. But nope, this cycle just wasn't broken yet. Alexander, the son, launches a third revolt. He sees his chance while the Roman general Gabinius is off campaigning in Egypt, leaving this power vacuum that he was more than happy to fill.
And this attempt was by far his biggest. He gathered a massive army, we're talking 30,000 men, and just went on a rampage against any Roman forces he could find. Gabinius had to rush back to deal with him, and the final battle near Mount Tabor was an absolute slaughter. I mean, look at these numbers. A full third of his army, 10,000 men, were wiped out in a single fight. The rebellion was completely shattered.
Okay, so here's the really crucial part.
Pay attention to what happened right after this. Josephus adds this quiet but incredibly important detail. The government was settled as Antipater would have it. Who's Antipater? He's the shrewd political operator who, while all this chaos was going on, was busy positioning himself, getting on Rome's good side, and quietly shaping the future of Judea.
And just as the players in Judea are changing, so were the Romans in charge. After Gabinius, two new heavy hitters arrive in Syria. First, Crassus, who was famous for being insanely wealthy, and after him, the absolutely ruthless Cassius. And these guys had very different priorities than their predecessor.
And this change in leadership was devastating for Judea. I mean, Gabinius, for all his brutality, was an administrator. He actually rebuilt cities. His successor, Crassus, he was just a plunderer driven by greed. On his way to fight the Parthians, he literally sacked the Jerusalem temple for its gold. And after Crassus died, Cassius took over, a pure enforcer who put down the last bits of rebellion by enslaving 30,000 people. And guess who was right there, whispering in the ear of this new, ruthless Roman commander? Antipater. He advised Cassius to execute Pithilaus, the very same leader who had defected to Aristobulus' side. You see what he's doing? Antipater was masterfully using the Romans to get rid of his local political rivals.
And this is where the whole story pivots. While the old royal family was basically destroying itself in this pointless cycle of war against Rome, Antipater was playing a completely different game. He understood that you don't win real power by fighting the empire, you win by making yourself essential to the empire. He used all this chaos to build alliances and lay the foundation for his own family's rise to power.
He had 4 sons, but I want you to pay close attention to that second one. Josephus lists him as Herod, who was afterwards king. And with that one line, we see Antipater's ultimate victory. Through all of that bloodshed and all those failed revolts, he had maneuvered his family into the perfect position to one day rule Judea, giving rise to one of history's most notorious figures, Herod the Great.
So, with the Jewish revolts finally and brutally put down, and with Antipater's family now on the rise, the Roman general Cassius turned his attention eastward. He heads back to the Euphrates River because a much bigger threat to the entire Roman Empire was looming on the horizon, the Parthians.
And that is where Josephus leaves us for this chapter. The cycle of revolt in Judea is over, for now. But a new, even larger conflict is just beginning. As the historian himself writes, "Concerning which matter we shall speak elsewhere." It's just a chilling reminder that in this period of history, the story of war is never really over.